So you say this is the right thing to do, and this was inevitable in terms of securing peace. But I want to talk about the casualties here, because we've seen 8 people die. We've seen numerous injuries as well. What is your understanding about the profile of the people that have died? Yeah.
So it's not 8 people. It's 8 terrorists. They had the weapons, they had guns. We identified
so
them
they're all
and we
terrorists.
neutralized them.
Yeah.
Well, 7 out of the 8 were carrying weapons while they were killed. So I don't know about the 8, but apparently they were in the same area. But those guys were not innocent civilians.
Yeah.
We sent text messages in advance telling the civilians to stay in their homes. We are taking the precautions to make sure not to have any civilian casualties. We cannot guarantee it, but we are doing our best to do it.
But let's talk about the eight people that died. You say that they're 8 terrorists. So you're confirming that the deaths right now do not include civilian casualties?
Well, I can confirm you that 7 out of the 8 were carrying weapons and were shooting our troops. And so for sure I can make a commitment about those 7. But I believe that also the 8th one was involved, but I don't have the information today. But I can tell you that our commanders are doing everything in their power to make sure that we attack the terrorists and we help the terrorists.
Yeah, I mean, there are also 50 people that have been wounded. So we know the situation on the ground is becoming extremely intense. You've seen the condemnation coming through from various countries. Egypt has also stood firm. Are you concerned about how this is going to potentially impact your relationship with some Arab states, particularly the ones with whom you've signed the Abraham Accords?
Well, we have strong relations with those countries. They understand because they are facing terrorism as well in the region from the same radical groups. And they realize that we have no other option.
Yeah.
It's not our intention to be there. But when we know about the threats and we know about the capabilities, I believe any other country in the world, not only in the region, will do the same, will neutralize the threats against those civilians.
Do we know anything about, in terms of whether there have been discussions with Washington about this raid and whether the United States gave the green light?
Well, we don't need the green light from anyone, but we do have an open dialogue with our colleagues in Washington. We share with them a lot of the intelligence we gather in the region, and we have a good cooperation with them. So yes, we are talking with our colleagues in DC, but we don't ask for green lights. That's not our policy. Any government in Israel will take the right decisions to protect our civilians, and we don't need authority, not from the US, not from the EU, and not from the UN.
Well, the UN, Lynn Hastings says, and she's the resident humanitarian coordinator, said she was alarmed at the scale of this operation. Do you accept that characterization?
No, I think many people, jumped into conclusions. And what we have seen in the last few hours, that we have a very precise operation, and we are very cautious about using force, and we are focusing on hunting down the terrorists and the labs of terror that they built in Jenin area. So I don't think there's any reason to condemn us. But some people, they don't look at the details. Whenever they see some activity of our troops, they condemn us immediately.